Okay, so we're back. So I guess this will be a two-parter. But let me explain what I did from last week. So, to me the flower was looking... Oh, by the way, hi. I'm Deb from Deb's Studio. Oh my gosh, I'm starting this out all wrong. Anyways, this week we're going to try to finish up the daisy. So this is the one that we started last week. Like I said, I went on further off camera because I just wasn't liking how it was going. And I probably should have recorded it. Where my mind is going is that adding to where we stopped last week, I added in some more magenta into the leaves to try to pull it more, I don't know, pinkish purple, because there is some pinkish purple, a lot of pinkish purple. It's purple. The flower is purple, but it's a variation. It's kind of a light purple, and I just wasn't getting that light purple like I wanted. It looked really yucky to me. Anyways, so I put my center in. I used my Diox as the shadow part, because there is some shadow that comes off of this center part. And added some magenta in, deepened my shadows of the purple. So I thought this week what I would do is the next layer up will be lighter, to try to pull this flower in, pull this flower more light and hopefully natural looking, although I'm not very good at natural looking. The oil paint was actually mixing a whole lot on me, which now tells me why the old artist painted in layers. So this is actually dry. It does look shiny, but that is because of the safflower oil that I used in the painting itself. So having explained why it's this way and not what you saw at the end of the last video, let's go over what we're going to do this week and the materials we're going to use. I have my little cup here for my medium, and I think there should be something that I have not yet explained that I do need to explain for those who do not know, and I'm still learning. In oil, unlike acrylic where you can have a thin layer on top of a thick layer, with oil painting you start thin and then build on that. So what that's actually saying is, the rule is called fat over lean. To get your paint, your oil paint, to be more lean, you add in, of course, the mediums. The more layers you go up, the less medium you use, which means now your paint is fatter, if that makes sense. Or at least that's the way I think of fat over lean. So, and what that is so that the lean layers underneath will dry or be dry when you start putting thicker paint on top, or paint with less medium, because now the paint's gotten fatter and it'll take longer to dry. So you want your bottom layers to be dry before you add on a fatter layer, if that makes sense. So this does feel pretty dry to the touch. Well, it is dry to the touch. So now what we're going to do is we're going to put a more fat layer or a fatter layer on top of this. It's kind of like glazing. You put down the glaze layer and then you put down the fat layer. I know that's probably not making a whole lot of sense, but in my little head it worked. Brushes we're going to be using are the same that we used last week. Oh, and let me tell you something. I spotted this brush cleaner in Michael's, and it's the Master's brush cleaner with preservative to use to clean my brushes, because I've been using just regular household dish soap, which works perfectly well for acrylic paint. But I was noticing with the oil paint, it didn't feel like I was getting, you know, all the oil residue out of the brush, and I'm like, I've got to do something about that. So while shopping for paint, I ran across this, so I bought it, and it's just a thing of soap that's in there, and it's almost like a waxy kind of soap. I don't know what they use or what ingredients are in it. I'm sure if I read the back. Here. So, let me just read the directions. So, rinse the brush in warm water, swirl brush in compound, and work into a lather. Rinse and repeat as necessary until the brush is clean. Rinse again with water. Then here for hard oil paint brushes, let brush sit with cleaner on bristles for a short period of time. Remove excess or resume process above, which is this up here. And then once you've got it rinsed, you'll shape the brush to a point and allow to dry with the clean lather on for extra conditioning. So that's what I did, is I washed these a couple of times, and then the third time I just took it back and forth on this, shaped the brush and then let them dry, and then I rinsed them right before starting here. And I'm going to tell you, it takes the oil residue out of the brush. I'm shocked. I'm actually amazed. I mean, they're still wet, so I really don't have but I mean, they do feel so much better than just washing them with regular soap and water. So my suggestion would be, on your oil brushes, use a cleaner rather than just regular, or with the water soluble brushes, I should say, or water soluble oil. For traditional oils, you would still want to use turpentine or odorless, some sort of odorless material. And I guess you could go ahead and wash them with this too and condition your brushes. But I'm really amazed. I mean, and even in these little brushes where the paint was just feeling like it was just, the residue wasn't coming out, it really got that residue out. I'll know more next week, because I'll do the same thing at the end of this process. I'll wash them and then I'll let the cleaner sit on them, rinse them the day before I start painting. That way they'll be dry by the next day, and then I'll be able to give you more of an idea, more input as to how well I like that cleaner. But right now I'm really impressed with how much residue, oil residue, this cleaner takes out of the brush. It's wonderful. I mean, I still don't think I would switch over to my acrylic paint with these brushes and go back and forth like that. I would just keep my oil brushes separate from my acrylic brushes. Alright, so this week we're going to be using primarily the brushes we used last week. I won't need... Where's my little liner brush? Won't need the liner brush because we've already done the outline. I only do that for the outline. I will keep my my round brush here. I really need to make a list of the brushes I've got and keep it up somewhere. But my number 4 round or number 2 round, probably some of these smaller brushes. I probably won't be using the filberts today. Well, maybe. But at any rate, all the brushes that I've had, I'll have them in the description, the brushes. Because I know I have that in a document somewhere that I'm saving so that I don't have to keep typing out what I have and what I don't have. Excuse me. Paper towels for wiping our brush off with. Our palette. Not sure if we'll use the palette knives or not, but I've got those. And let me see, my white. So I've got my white paint. Titanium white. Oh, I did buy, I got a zinc white also. Now what this is it's a transparent, or like a transparent white that you can use for mixing with colors. And what this is supposed to do is lighten the color without making it look milky, if that makes sense, like you would with titanium white, because titanium white itself is an opaque color. So when you mix it with any other color, to me it makes the colors look milky, which is kind of unnatural. So I got the zinc white. I haven't used it yet, but I got the zinc white, so now that I can lighten the color without the color looking milky on me. So that's something we're going to try this week. So there's my titanium white, my zinc white, and then we're also going to be using the permanent rose, the magenta, and then the dioxazine purple again, our little cup, our safflower oil, our brushes, paper towels, and then the painting where I stopped off without you guys last week. So with that being said, let's go ahead and lay out I might not need much of this because now we're doing a fatter layer this time as opposed to a thin layer. I'm going to put my titanium white to the side and then try just to use this zinc white, which this is Winsor Newton Artisan. I got this at Michael's. So my camera stopped. I went ahead and I laid out the paint that we're going to use. So here I have the magentas here. This is the Dial Purple. This is the Permanent Rose. And then of course we have our zinc white here. Let's go ahead and get started. So I'm wanting to go with lighter colors on top of this paint that's dry. And let's just go ahead and see how that's going to work. So there's the zinc white. So the magenta does look real close to what the flower looks like in the picture. And I will say, even though this zinc white when it first came out I thought was kind of thin, it is pretty thick. Being as I'm someone who originally started painting with acrylics, I still haven't got the hang of how easily oil paint mixes when it's wet. Because see, with acrylics dry so quick that the issue I was having was I couldn't blend very well because the paint was drying so fast. Well, now where I'm wanting the paint to be dry, it's now wet. So when I go over, I have to remember each time I do a stroke with a color on top of a color that I don't want to blend, I need to wipe the brush off and then go get fresh paint and go over it. So it's a lot of going back and forth between getting paint, putting the paint down, cleaning the brush, getting paint, putting the paint down, cleaning the brush. You don't have to do that so much with acrylic paint. You just need to wait a couple of minutes and the bottom layer is dry. Where with oil, it doesn't work that way. So you've got to wait like a week or so for a bottom layer to be dry if you don't want your paint blending. I mean, if you want it to blend, then yeah, that's great. I was under the opinion, I guess, since oils do tend to, well, oil first of all, that, you know, it's easier to correct an acrylic mistake than it is to correct an oil mistake. And that's not necessarily true. With oil, so with an acrylic mistake, you would just let the acrylic paint dry and then you would paint over it. Oil is something similar to that, but first you've got to get off the excess that you're going to paint over. So you would just simply wipe off whatever excess that you're wanting to, you know, paint over per se. So you'd wipe off the excess with a paper towel or something. And then just paint over it with the color that you're wanting to use. A little more. So really correcting a mistake in oils is not really all that difficult. Because again, you're wiping up excess color and then just going over it again. With acrylic, you're letting it dry and then going over it with the color that you want. So yeah, correcting a mistake in oil or acrylic is about the same. It's just a little different. Clean out my brush, and yes, I use water to clean out the brush, but it is a water mixable paint. Again, I would not recommend, even though you can, I wouldn't recommend thinning your water mixable oil paint with water. And I kind of discovered that when I was watching, who was it? Was it Jerry's? I think it was Jerry's, and they were talking about water mixable oil paints, and that many people really don't like water mixable oil paints because they say the colors die or dry dull. There's no luminosity to them, and that's because they're using water to thin the oil or thin the paint, as opposed to using a specially formulated oil medium to thin the paint. So this retains the luminosity of the oil paint itself so that it looks more like a traditional oil. It's just that the water mixable oil paints, you can clean them up with water. Soap and water, or just water, which is a good thing, especially for folks who, you know, might possibly have an allergy to like turpentine or something like that. Boy, I need to put out more paint. I forget how strong dioxazine purple is. Dioxazine is a real strong color. And that's what I noticed too about this rose. This rose was a real strong color too. So perhaps next time, or maybe what I would suggest is when you're mixing white with a color, start with white and then add just a little touch of the color that you're wanting to lighten. But just a little touch. Because here I put out my purple first, but I've already used up all my white to lighten my purple, and I still don't have it as light as I'd like it to be. However, that's going to work for right now. So let me go ahead and put in what I'm seeing. So one of these little leaves has got like it flips up and it's casting a shadow over the top of itself, if that makes sense. So I've got to try to represent that somehow. Center's getting a little too big. So here's where we're going to be trying to cover a mistake or correcting something we don't like. Okay. Now not all of this is going to come up because the layer underneath was already dry. But at least we're going to get up this excess purple that we already have down. That, and then back to my smaller brush now, because now I want to add in some dark. Just don't remember if it was the rose or the magenta the last time. We're going to have to find out. Not to add any medium into this magenta that I'm putting down, simply because, well, for a couple reasons actually. I've got enough medium, I think, in the paint that I already have on here to where it would mix for me relatively easy. But also so the magenta's a little bit thicker or fatter than the colors that I have down. purple needs to go out further. I don't want to go too much bigger. So I took a break, obviously. So now let's see if we can get this little bad boy finished. I don't know, maybe it's okay. That center is still, it's bugging me. And I don't know exactly what to do. Now I do see some yellow in the painting, and wow, and that yellow is going to be kind of hard to put in, but I do need to darken that center, so let's do that first. Alright, it's not the best, but let's go ahead and see if we can't find some yellow, which I don't have any right here, so bear with me. I've got to get some yellow to fill in this middle, because I do see a few speckles of yellow in there, probably for the stamens or the pollen or something. So alright, I'll be back. Okay, so got this cadmium yellow medium and then a lemon yellow. Looks more like the cadmium yellow maybe. It looks more orange. I'll put both of these out. And just a little tad should do it. Yeah, I'm thinking this one's closer. And let's see. Make sure this brush is rinsed out real good. Get that purple out, so we're not all muddied up. So, we're going to call this an Impressionist Daisy, because we can tell it's a daisy, but it's not realistic. But anyways, we've got 2 more flowers to do, one of which is the rose. And I haven't got a rose chosen yet, and I can't remember what the other one was. Oh, the lily was the other one we were going to do. So, let me go find that tracing. So this is, gosh, how does it, I think it goes like this. I'll need to pull up the reference photo. I don't have it immediately available, and I don't want to take the time to try to go look for it. Let's see. Get this moved over here a little bit. But this is the daisy. These are green stems here. That much I do know. I'm not sure what this leaf is, but this is the lily itself, and then the stamen's coming out. So when I have the reference photo, I'll know more how this is supposed to go. I think it goes like this for you guys, but again, I don't have the reference photo pulled up, and it would take me a hot minute to try to find it, so we're not even going to bother. But at any rate, I think we'll do this one next week. Who knows? I might decide to do the rose if I find a rose by then.